The last section that I want to discuss in this part of chapter 2.3 is what's known as the necrophilous person, right? The necrophilous person, and this idea of the necrophilous person comes from Erich Fromm's work, right? So this is the, I keep on dropping this thing. This is the necrophilous person. N-E-C-R-O-P. Alright, so the necrophilous person. The necrophilous person is driven to mechanize the organic. You can imagine that we have a little flower here. Okay, so this will be my flower. And what I want to do is I want to mechanize the flower, right? I want to contain the flower within a framework where the flower doesn't exist on its own, but only exists insofar as I allow it to exist, right? I want to mechanize the organic. I look at a human being and I recognize that this human being has its own desires. I want to limit that person's desires by creating a framework in which I control that human being, right? And you can imagine that this individual, the oppressor, everything that he or she's becomes mechanized. Everything that it's sort of it's like the King Midas, right? How they had that section, that fairy tale. Everything that King Midas touched turned to gold. It's exactly that idea. It's exactly that idea. I touch the wall, it becomes gold. I touch a flower, the flower becomes gold. I touch a human being, that human being becomes gold. Insofar as they become gold now they're mine for the taking. I can possess them. I can build a huge warehouse and stockpile all of these things, and I can say, look how good I am because look at all that I have. What I have isn't only objects in the world, but it's also people, right? So this framework, like the gold in Midas's golden touch, is an attempt to control through mechanization, right? This is a necrophilous person. A necrophilous person has this proclivity. Interested in the objectification of the subject, right? So we talked about that, the objectification of the subject. I want to make this autonomous human being into an object for control, right? The necrophilous person are, I don't know what that says. Necrophilous people are their possessions, right? Necrophilous, and I need to reword that. Necrophilous people are identified by what it is that they have, right? I, as a necrophilous oppressor, am the things that I own. I am this and I am this. If you attempt to take this from me, right? If you attempt to take this from me, then it's like you taking part of me, right? So I'm going to defend the oppressor is going to defend his or her objects, his or her possessions, with lethal force, right? The thought of losing my car isn't like just, well, you know, it's a car, you can go get another one. No, it's my car, right? And I'm willing to destroy human lives in protection of that material object, right? So I become the things that I possess. In this process, however, and this is very, very interesting. I'm not going to go into this. I'm not going to go into this concept now because I think it's well beyond the discussion within Freire. I think it has implications, right? The idea has implications beyond Freire, and it's just too much. But in order for me to control things in the world, I need to kill, right? The only way that I maintain this sense of control is through death, right? So the necrophilous person controls by killing, right? I kill and destroy, and insofar as I kill and destroy, I then have control. Because what happens is people recognize that I have power to destroy. And since they don't want to be destroyed, they'll submit themselves in order to live. But they live within the framework that I've created, right? So I'll say that again. I want to control. In order for me to control, I kill. Those which I kill, I make sure that it's sort of like in a genocide scholarship way, right? I make sure that it's done visibly, right? I profess my power by my ability to destroy, to kill. Those who do not want to die, those who do not want to be killed, must subjugate willfully themselves to my power, or face that same fate, or face that death. So what do? They subjugate themselves, they bow. Insofar as they bow, now they live within the framework, right? They live within the bracket. They live within the bracket that I've created for them, right? So that their existence is now completely controlled by however I want their lives to be controlled. And really the only way to fight against this is through that struggle for liberation. And sometimes, as we've seen in Freire, this struggle for liberation includes violence, right? And it includes me directing my violence not horizontal violence, not violence towards members of my own oppressive group, but violence towards the oppressor, right? Because without that, the oppressor is going to continue to destroy and continue to kill, because the oppressor is this necrophilous individual. The last point is that he makes is that the banking concept of education is also necrophilic, right? It is similarly necrophilic. The banking concept is the having of consciousness rather than the being of consciousness, right? It is the student, this student is better than this student because this student has, more knowledge than this student, right? This student has a bit of knowledge, this student has a little bit more knowledge, but we say that this student is better than this one, right? This student is better than this one. But why is this student better than this one? Because this student's memorized more, right? Well, insofar as we've seen earlier in this series of the video, memorization is nothing more than the transformation of accessible consciousness and the imposition of that accessible consciousness as internal consciousness, right? All I've done is I've taken a static world and I've imposed that static world onto the constructs of my mind. Now my mind is a replication of this static world, and I showed you in a demonstration of me going for the phone how that works. I mean, how is that a good thing? You know, how is that a good thing? I haven't created anything with my mind. All I've done is I've used my mind and I've imposed the external world onto my mind. And yeah, I have more content knowledge, right? But insofar as I have content knowledge, it doesn't talk about my lived experience, right? It doesn't talk about the existence, the things that I've done. All it talks about is what I've retained, what I've remembered. And then lastly, Eric Fromm writes, by this symbolic participation in another person's life, men have the illusion of acting, when in reality they only submit to become a part of those who act. And in the next discussion I'll talk more about this idea, but what's being stated is the oppressed vicariously live their lives through the oppressor. Right? We look at our celebrities, we look at those people who have risen to fame, quote unquote, and we live our lives vicariously through them. They are, in a sense, acting, right? They are adopting babies and saving rainforests and whatever it is that they're doing. Or they're destroying people and, you know, doing drugs and buying ridiculously gaudy and ostentatious objects for possession. And we do the same thing, right? But our action is only an imitation of their act, and we think that we are acting like they are, but they're the only ones that are authentically acting in the world, right? The rest of us are, I mean, I'm not that type of person. I'm oppressed, but I'm not that oppressed, right? The rest of those people who sort of live their lives vicariously through idolatry, through celebrity worship, you know, royalty worship, what have you, are not acting. All they're doing is living or replicating the actions of the group that they idolize, right? And obviously that is a process of being a necrophilous person. So with that being said, this concludes the discussion of section 2.3. Section 2.3 of Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my videos. I'm Dr. Jason J. Campbell. Thank you and have a good day.